Imagine hitting the power button on this massive, just incredibly noisy machine, right? And you're expecting total silence.
Right.
But then you look down and you realize, well, someone completely ripped the power button out.
Yeah, it's just gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's literally no off switch. And, that is your brain. Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're exploring why a quote-unquote quiet mind is actually, biologically speaking, totally impossible if you're trying to get there by just forcing everything to shut down.
It's a really common misconception, honestly.
Right. So we're looking at the architecture of a quiet mind, trying to figure out how you can actually find some peace, not by stopping the machinery, but by understanding how it's built in the first place.
Yeah, because most of us, we have this deeply flawed expectation that mental peace equals a complete void, just blank space.
Like a white room.
Exactly, a white, silent room. But if you look at cognitive psychology and neuroscience, they show us the human brain was just never designed to be completely silent.
Not even for a second.
Not really, no. And to understand this, there's this really elegant framework from our sources. I want you to think of your mind as a grand public library.
Okay, a library.
Yeah, and it's been open all day long. Thousands of thoughts have just walked through the doors.
Like little patrons.
Right. And some are carrying excitement, some are dragging in, these heavy anxieties, and a vast majority are just wandering in completely aimless. They're just looking for a place to sit.
Which is funny because, the natural impulse, especially when you're just totally exhausted at the end of the day, is to act like a really frustrated librarian.
Oh, totally. You just want to yell, quiet.
Yeah. You want to kick all the visitors out, barricade the heavy wooden doors, and just finally get some quiet.
But you can't.
Right. You literally can't barricade the doors.
Yeah.
So if we can't do that, how do we actually sit peacefully in a room that's just full of visitors? Like, what is the brain actually doing when we're just trying to sit still on the couch?
Well, when you're resting physically, your brain defaults to a highly active state.
Wait, really? It gets more active.
Neurologically, yeah, it switches over to this thing called the default mode network.
The default mode network.
Yeah, it effectively becomes an evolutionary scanner. So even with your eyes closed, just chilling on the couch, it's sorting through the events of the day.
Doing paperwork?
Basically, it's searching for patterns, cross-referencing past experiences, and actively running simulations of what might happen tomorrow.
Wow.
It's a prediction engine, and it's running all these background processes with one main objective, which is threat detection and survival.
Okay, I have to challenge the premise of threat detection here because, well, let's say I'm finally relaxing, right?
Sure.
The house is perfectly quiet. Why does my brain decide at that exact second to serve up this completely unprompted memory of like a painfully awkward handshake I botched 5 years ago?
Oh, the classic cringe memory.
Yes. Or, an email I forgot to send last Tuesday. How does recalling a socially embarrassing moment from half a decade ago keep me safe?
No.
Like, what is the evolutionary utility in simply cringing?
It's actually a brilliant question, and it all comes down to how our species survived.
Okay.
For our ancestors, social rejection was quite literally a death sentence.
Because you'd be out on your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you were kicked out of the tribe, you didn't survive the winter. So your brain treats social missteps like a botched handshake or an awkward conversation. It treats them as critical data points for your social survival model.
You're kidding. So it's treating a bad handshake like a tiger in the bushes.
In a way, yeah. When your brain suddenly hands you that cringe-inducing memory out of nowhere, it is essentially running a software update.
Oh, wow.
It's saying, hey, remember when we did this? Let's make sure we never, ever do it again so we don't get exiled from the group and starve.
So the cringe is actually a biological mechanism to ensure I stay in the tribe's good graces. That is wild.
Yeah, it's trying to help.
But why does it only happen when I'm finally trying to relax? Why not when I'm, washing the dishes or at work?
Well, that's because of the silence effect.
The silence effect.
Right. The silence in your house doesn't generate those unwanted thoughts. The thoughts were actually running in the background of your mental library all day long.
Wait, they were the whole time?
The whole time, but they were masked by external noise. You were navigating traffic, you were answering emails, listening to music.
I was distracted.
Exactly. You had cognitive load. When the external stimuli drop to zero, your internal background processing suddenly becomes the foreground.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, you didn't just start thinking about the awkward handshake. You finally had the bandwidth to notice your brain was already processing it.
That reframes the entire experience for me. But, knowing that doesn't completely kill the natural urge to fight it,
Of
right?
course not.
Because when that memory pops up, you wince, you shake your head, and you just try to forcefully push it away so you can get back to relaxing.
Which is, unfortunately, totally counterproductive.
Is it?
Yeah, because of a phenomenon known as the paradox of resistance.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So, from a neurological standpoint, trying to suppress a thought requires active cognitive effort. You have to monitor your brain to make sure you aren't thinking the thought.
Right.
And to do that, your brain has to keep the thought active. Like, if I tell you right now, under no circumstances should you think about the color blue, what is the very first thing your brain has to do?
Almost like an internet search algorithm.
Exactly.
If I try to filter out a keyword, the system still has to parse the keyword to block it.
Yeah.
So the moment you say, do not think about blue, my brain has to fetch the concept of blue just to know what to avoid. So by trying to block it, I'm flashing a neon sign over it.
Precisely. You are tagging it with salience.
Salience, like importance.
Right. You're signaling to your amygdala that this thought is highly important and requires attention. And this is exactly why resistance amplifies anxiety.
So fighting it makes it worse.
Much worse. The alternative approach, which works mechanically much better with our neural architecture, is non-judgmental acknowledgement.
Non-judgmental acknowledgement, so just letting it be there.
Yeah, you notice the thought has arrived, you don't attach an emotional reaction to it, and you just let it decay on its own.
It's basically realizing you can't be a bouncer at your own mental nightclub.
Oh, I like that.
Because if you try to physically tackle a thought at the door, you create a massive scene.
The whole club looks over.
Exactly. You release adrenaline, your heart rate spikes, and now the entire club is focused on the fight at the door. But if you let the thought walk in, realize it's just a temporary visitor checking out the room, it eventually gets bored and leaves on its own without triggering your sympathetic nervous system.
That's the exact mechanism. Thoughts are highly transient electrical impulses.
Transient, so they don't last.
Right. They naturally decay if you don't fuel them with emotional energy or resistance. You just don't have to offer every thought a seat at the table.
Okay, so if we accept that we just let them pass through without fighting them, we have to look at the cumulative effect, I think.
Okay, how so?
Because these aren't just isolated clouds floating by, right? Every time a thought passes through, it's a physiological event.
Yes, it is.
So how do these daily passing thought patterns physically alter the landscape of the brain over time?
Well, this is where we get into neuroplasticity.
Which is a buzzword everyone throws around.
They do, but we need to look at how it works mechanically, not just conceptually.
Right. Break it down for us.
Every time you have a thought, a specific network of neurons fires. And there's this foundational rule in neuroscience. Neurons that fire together, wire together.
Fire together, wire together. I've heard that.
Yeah, so when you repeat a thought pattern, the brain responds by physically reinforcing that pathway.
Physically reinforcing it, like building a bridge.
Kind of. It wraps the specific neural connections in a fatty substance called myelin.
Myelin.
Yes. Myelin acts like insulation on a copper wire. It makes the electrical signal travel faster and far more efficiently.
Oh, wow. So when people say practicing daily gratitude or like mindfulness changes your perspective, it's not just a poetic shift in attitude.
Not at all.
You are literally insulating specific neural pathways, making it chemically and electrically easier for your brain to spot a moment of compassion or beauty the next day.
Exactly. You are lowering the threshold required for that specific network to activate.
Lowering the threshold.
Yeah. Over time, spotting beauty or feeling gratitude becomes your brain's path of least resistance.
Okay, but wait. If our brains are ruthlessly optimizing for whatever we do most, there is a terrifying dark side to this plasticity.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if I am stressed out about work every single evening, or if I spend 2 hours doom-scrolling catastrophic news before bed, I'm not just absorbing information.
No, you're not.
I am actively myelinating my anxiety pathways. Like I am physically upgrading my brain's hardware to be better at being terrified.
Unfortunately, yes, that is exactly what you're doing.
That is horrifying.
Yeah, it is. Because the brain is entirely neutral, it doesn't judge whether a pathway is making you happy or miserable. It only cares about efficiency.
Just doing its job.
Exactly. Chronic stress teaches the brain's alarm system to become hypersensitized. It's the classic forest path analogy from our sources.
Oh, share that one.
If you walk the same route through a dense forest every day, you trample the weeds, you pack down the dirt, and eventually you pave a highway.
Right, it gets easier to walk every time.
Exactly. If you constantly walk the everything is a disaster path, That highway becomes so wide and clear that your thoughts will naturally default to it, even when no actual danger is present.
Because it's the easiest road to take.
Right. It takes the path of least resistance.
Man, that is a staggering amount of power to realize you hold.
It really is.
But it also begs a massive question. If our brains are so willing to physically alter their pathways based on repetition, what exactly are we paving those pathways with?
The data.
Right. We rely heavily on our memories to inform these thought patterns. We assume the data we are building these highways on is completely flawless.
We do assume that, yes.
But it isn't, is it?
Not even close. We tend to think of memory as a secure video file stored on a hard drive.
Like an MP4 you just click play on.
Right. You double-click the file, watch the event exactly as it happened, and then close the file. But functionally, memory doesn't work that way at all. Every single time you recall an event, the memory is actively reconstructed.
Wait, let's dig into the mechanics of that. It's reconstructed every time.
Every single time.
So I'm not accessing the original file.
No, you are accessing a trace, but in the process of bringing it into your conscious awareness, the memory becomes malleable again.
Malleable, like clay.
Exactly. It undergoes a process called reconsolidation. Your mind essentially repaints the details using your current emotional state, your present beliefs, and your recent experiences as the palette. And when you put the memory back into storage, you aren't storing the original. You are storing the newly reconstructed version.
So if the emotional state dictates the memory, then a bad mood today literally changes my history of yesterday.
Yes.
It overwrites it.
Well, let's say a couple has an argument about a vacation they took 5 years ago.
A classic scenario.
Right. They remember the exact same day completely differently. And the traditional thought is that one of them is lying or just being stubborn or gaslighting the other.
Right.
But biologically, neither of them is lying.
Nope.
Their brains have simply reconsolidated that memory dozens of times through totally different emotional filters over the years.
That is entirely accurate. The objective details often fade or shift, but the emotional resonance remains deeply embedded.
So they remember the feeling.
Yes, the brain fills in the missing data gaps with what it feels must have happened based on the emotion attached to it.
Wow.
This highlights that our personal histories are not objective documentaries, they are highly subjective narratives. That completely dismantles the idea of needing to be right about the past.
It really does. It's quite humbling.
But if our brain is constantly hallucinating the past to match our feelings, how much is it hallucinating the future to protect us? Because, I don't know about you, but my mind spends way more time in the future than it does in the past.
Oh, absolutely. And to understand that, we have to go back to the brain as an evolutionary prediction engine.
Right, the scanner.
Yes. It needs data to predict threats. And uncertainty is basically a lack of data.
A blank spot.
Right. To a biological system designed to keep you alive, a lack of data registers as an immediate threat. When the brain looks at the future and sees missing answers, it panics.
It doesn't like the unknown.
Not at all. It attempts to close the gap by aggressively generating hypothetical scenarios.
Which explains the exhausting habit of rehearsing a confrontation with your boss that hasn't happened yet.
Yes. Or pre-playing a disaster while you're just trying to fall asleep.
Literally lying in bed arguing with someone in my head.
Exactly. Your brain is generating synthetic data to replace the missing real data.
Synthetic data, that's a great term for it.
Yeah, it thinks it is preparing you.
Yeah.
But the cost is immense physiological exhaustion.
Tell me about it.
The key to mitigating this isn't to force the brain to stop predicting. I mean, you can.
Right, there's no power button.
The key is reframing how you interpret uncertainty. The brain treats uncertainty as a predator in the bushes. We have to consciously remind the system that uncertainty is not a threat. It is simply a space where tomorrow hasn't been written yet.
I love that. Tomorrow hasn't been written yet.
Exactly. Not every question requires an immediate answer for you to be safe in this exact moment.
That is such a crucial distinction. We are fighting this biological urge to solve tomorrow's problems with today's limited data.
Precisely.
But knowing that intellectually doesn't automatically stop the physical feeling of anxiety, right?
No, it doesn't.
Since our memories are colored by emotion and uncertainty triggers this massive physiological alarm bell, how do we actually handle the intensity of these emotions when they just flood the mental library?
Well, we have to move away from labeling emotions as good or bad and start looking at their mechanical function.
Mechanical function.
Yeah, emotions are essentially physiological instructions. They create chemical changes, releasing cortisol, adrenaline, or oxytocin to prompt a specific behavior.
Okay, give me some examples.
Sure, joy drives connection. Disgust keeps us away from pathogens.
Makes sense.
And sadness is particularly interesting. It functions to slow the system down, inviting reflection and signaling to the tribe that we need support.
So an emotion is almost like a bout of physiological humidity.
Humidity.
Yeah, it's a temporary weather pattern trying to clear out a system.
Oh, that's an excellent way to conceptualize it.
Like a storm.
Right. If you look at sadness or anxiety as a physical weather pattern rolling through the body to metabolize an experience, your relationship to it totally changes.
Because you don't try to stop a thunderstorm.
Exactly. You let it run its course. The suffering comes when we try to freeze the weather, when we identify with it so deeply that a passing storm becomes our permanent climate.
That is profound. But let's get highly practical here.
Okay.
Let's say this storm is severe. You're sitting there, your heart rate is elevated, the predictive engine is getting totally out of control about the future, and you just feel entirely overwhelmed.
A very familiar feeling for a lot of people.
Right. And we can't just think our way out of a physiological response.
Yes.
So how do we hack the system to tell this biological scanner that it's actually safe?
You use the body-mind loop.
The body-mind loop.
Yes. Because the brain is constantly scanning for threats, it doesn't just scan the external world, it intensely monitors your internal state.
So it's looking inside and outside.
Exactly. It takes cues from your physical body to determine if there really is an emergency. We can reverse engineer a quiet mind by manually adjusting the physical environment to send signals of safety up the vagus nerve to the brain.
The vagus nerve, that's the massive communication highway between the organs and the brain, right?
Exactly. When you are stressed, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense, and your pupils dilate to scan for danger.
Fight or flight.
Right. And the brain reads these physical states and confirms, yes, we are in danger, keep pumping out stress hormones.
Because the body is acting like there's a tiger.
Exactly. But you can consciously interrupt that loop.
How exactly? What are the actual levers we can pull?
You change the physical parameters.
Okay.
First, lower the lighting in the room. Bright overhead light mimics midday sun, which signals alertness to your circadian rhythm.
Oh, so turn off the big light?
Always turn off the big light.
Yeah.
Dim lighting signals the brain that the day is ending. Then slow down your breathing, specifically making your exhales longer than your inhales.
Stronger exhales. Why is that?
Because it physically engages the parasympathetic nervous system. It acts as a brake on the stress response. And finally, consciously soften the tension in your jaw and your shoulders.
Just drop the shoulders down. So, by physically mimicking the state of being deeply relaxed, the vagus nerve basically reports back to the brain, hey, heart rate is dropping, muscles are loose, breathing is slow and deep.
Exactly.
And the brain's threat detection center looks at that data and concludes, well, if we were being chased by a tiger, we wouldn't be breathing this slowly. Therefore, there must be no tiger.
You've got it. That's the exact hack. The brain relies on the body to validate the threat. When you remove the physiological evidence of the threat, the cognitive alarm bells begin to quiet down.
That is incredible.
Yeah, you aren't forcing the thoughts to stop. You are changing the chemical environment in which the thoughts are occurring. You are essentially signaling to the library that it's closing time.
That puts so much agency back in our hands, doesn't it?
It really does.
The goal was never to empty the library. The brain is a dynamic, constantly adapting machine. The visitors are going to come in.
They are.
The past will be reconstructed. The future will be simulated. That is just the machinery working as intended. The architecture of a quiet mind isn't about removing the thoughts. It's about shifting your relationship to them.
Exactly.
You don't have to tackle the visitors at the door, and you certainly don't have to build a highway for the ones that make you miserable.
It is about giving yourself permission to detach from the machinery for a while.
Permission to detach.
Yeah. There is a profound relief in recognizing that you have reached the end of the day, and the day has offered everything it is going to offer. The problems of tomorrow lack the data to be solved tonight. Your only biological mandate in this moment is to rest.
And the incredible thing is, even when you finally step back and let yourself sleep, the brain doesn't actually stop.
No, it doesn't.
It takes the night shift. While you are completely unconscious, your brain is doing all this heavy lifting it couldn't do while you were awake.
The night shift is fascinating.
Tell me about it.
So during deep sleep, the brain activates the glymphatic system to literally wash away cellular waste.
Like a parry wash.
Basically. But cognitively, it is doing massive organizational work. It is consolidating the memories of the day, deciding which temporary visitors to evict and which to integrate into your long-term library.
Wow.
It is pruning away the weak neural connections and strengthening the pathways you use the most. And the best part, you don't have to consciously manage any of this. The machinery repairs itself.
Which leaves us with a somewhat staggering implication to walk away with today.
Oh.
Yeah, think about it. If our brains are actively pruning pathways while we sleep, and if every memory is reconstructed and subtly altered by today's emotional state before it gets filed away.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. It forces you to ask. If your brain fundamentally reorganizes its architecture and rewrites its history in the dark, does the person you wake up as tomorrow subtly differ from the person who went to sleep today?
It has to, right?
And if so, how much influence do your quiet moments before sleep have on the person you become in the morning?
That is a beautiful and honestly slightly haunting mechanism to ponder. Just remember, the power button doesn't exist, and the library doors are always open.
Always.
But you can always find a quiet corner, adjust the lighting, slow your breathing, and just watch the visitors pass by. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.